Hi guys, you joined me in the Civic. We're putting the engine in this episode. I have to modify the turbo a bit. I was just here in the Footwell connecting the pedals again because we removed the brake booster and master cylinder for the engine bay repaint. It's actually much easier to remove it than I expected at 6 bolts and undoing it with a clip from the pedals. Also easy to put it back. It's not comfortable working down there. I didn't film it just because it's not majestic at all to be on your back working down there. It's not comfortable, but it's not difficult to take it out and put it back in. So if you're doing an engine bay repaint, I would recommend just removing the brake booster and the master cylinder. It's really not that difficult to remove and put it back. We have to modify the turbo a bit because I want to use less charge pipes, and currently the turbo is clocked to face forward and I actually want it to face down, but I'll show you guys that now. So we're just going to have to modify the bracket for the wastegate, the internal wastegate. Also, we have to put the engine in. Well, I have to put it in. I'm alone today, so there's no one going to help me. I also don't have an engine hoist. I just have like a ratchet that I can use. We do still have the axles in the car because I never took them out just because I was struggling with the ball joints. So I just left the CVs and axles in the car. So I'm going to put the gearbox in first, then put the engine in the car, and then put the clutch and flywheel on. Once that's in, I'll join the two together and then just lift it into place. So yeah, I'm sure by the end of this video the engine will be in the car. I doubt it will be running, but it will definitely be in the car. Okay, so I'm trying to just improve the way they mounted the turbo. So this is obviously where it bolts to the block, and then they have the turbo facing forward basically. So it's kind of facing forward but down. And the reason for that is the wastegate has to sit at this angle. So you can see it sits at an angle. And the only way for the wastegate to work is basically to sit at the back at this angle. There's not much adjustment as to where this sits. Now the problem with that is then you have to run this pipe. Now this is the pipe that goes to the intercooler. So it goes out and around to the intercooler, and you can see it comes up with this neck. So the turbo basically face forward and then face directly into this, and then this goes down and out and around. Now the problem is that is the lowest point. So you can see this clamp has been rubbing on the road for I guess every time you go over a speed bump. Now that lift the car up, so it won't really be a problem anymore, but I don't like the fact that it has to have this whole extra piece of pipe. So what I'm going to try and do is to clock the turbo to face straight down, but obviously that's impossible because it will go into this bracket here. Now you can see that it cut it already. What I'm going to do is cut it some more, maybe cut it right here, and cut this whole section, this section off. This is very strong. This is probably like 2mm steel. I'm not sure why it's so thick and so strong, but I'm going to cut this off and see if I can then make it work, make it fit, so that the wastegate sits right behind the turbo outlet. Once I do that, I can basically use this coupler and put it directly on here. So it will go directly into this coupler and into that pipe. It won't have this whole up and down section. Okay, so I cut this whole piece of the bracket off. I actually had to cut off way more than I wanted to. So that's basically all that's left of the bracket. It's this piece here. And yeah, now it's in the right spot. Turbo is facing down, so we can remove this whole bend section of the charge pipes. Now it is not as strong as before, but you know, it's still, this is quite thick steel, so it's not like it's flimsy or anything like that. Okay, so I'm test fitting the turbo now, just to make sure it still clears the block with the new location of the turbo outlet. And I can right off the back see now this wastegate is touching the block. So I'm not sure if I can actually block the turbo a bit more. I'm actually going to see if I can block it a bit more to get it to just sit above this. However, the aircon bracket must still go on here and bolts down here, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to cut the section out of that bracket as well. Okay, so this is where we are now. This is just for mock-up, so you guys can see what it's going to look like. All the bolts are not in. With the turbo and this bracket, I had to cut the back of it off so it will clear the new position of the wastegate. So now you can see no more interference, and I'm sure this is going to be plenty strong. I mean, this is a solid steel bracket. Okay, so here's the clutch setup and flywheel. The flywheel does have some minor stress cracks in the surface. Not sure if you guys will be able to see them. You probably can in this area. Now these cracks obviously aren't straight through, it's just in the surface because this area gets very hot. The pressure plate has some marks in it, but also looks good. Here's the custom made 4-puck clutch. It's also, it looks in good condition. You can see there's not too much wear on it. Like there's a very small ridge here. And the thing is, this clutch that worked perfect. It worked actually very, very well, so I'm not gonna mess with it. And here's a date from 2011. This clutch is 10 years old. However, we do know that this car sat for at least 5 of those 10 years, so it's not really 10 years. But yeah, it has dual springs. I'm not sure if that's standard. This is just a normal, see if I can find a name. This is just a normal like spare shop clutch. That's been modified, so they just put this part onto it. Okay, so here we have the engine on the engine stand. Gearbox is already in the car. I put the one side shaft in, other one's just flapping around there. Put the mounts on. I'm gonna have to use my this ratchet that goes into the ceiling to try and get this engine off the engine stand. Okay, so here's the setup. Not great, not ideal. I put some rags here not to scratch the valve cover. On this side I have a wash mitt so it doesn't scratch this plastic cover. I have my trusty screwdriver keeping everything from flinging everywhere, connected to the ceiling trusses. So what I'm going to do, it is actually now lifting the engine stand. So what I'm going to do is unbolt these bolts. I'm going to lift it up a bit higher so it's hanging above the engine bay, and then just put it down in the engine bay. Once it's down, I'm going to connect the gearbox to the engine and then use the ratchet again to just lift everything up, basically just to connect this engine mount and to connect that engine mount. Once they're connected, the engine will be in place and I can start just putting all the stuff on. Okay, so we made some progress. I have my ratchet set up again. So what I'm going to do now is just lift it up until the engine mounts, these two line up. And I'm going to shove the bolts in there, and then basically the engine will be supported. Putting the gearbox and the engine together while the shafts are in, I'm going to be honest, that was not enjoyable. Probably took me 10 minutes of struggling to get everything to line up perfectly, because you have to line up the dowel pins, the clutch, and the input shaft have to slide into the little pilot bearing in the flywheel, and all of that while the two side shafts are connected to the gearbox, because you have to put those in first, otherwise they won't go in. Okay, it's the next day. My back is still sore, my hands are sore, but engine's in there and I think it looks very good. Got all the mounts on except these two in the front. But the engine mounts are on, this back mount's on. Really easy if you don't have the intake on, because you can just access these bolts here. But yeah, everything else looks very nice. I mean, look how nice the starter looks. All these brackets got repainted. This one here, all repainted. The one at the back you're not going to see, so I didn't repaint that. But even these ones, all really nice satin black. Most of them I painted gloss black by accident, like this one here. And I just didn't like the gloss black, so even the booster, I went back, sanded it again, painted it satin black. So I think it looks very good. I'm fairly confident that the car will start and run today. Well, that's the goal. COVID had everything locked down, so I didn't really care for the car being down. It's been down for actually quite a while, probably around 5-6 months, and I didn't really care because all the tracks were closed. You know, there wasn't really much to do anyway, so I just took the time and, you know, cleaned everything up, painted every single part, just to make it look really, really nice. I mean, look how nice this bracket is. Now there's a few things that I still have to do. This power steering pump, I was planning on deleting the power steering, but for now I'm going to keep it. But this pump is still a bit dirty. This bottle, I think I got some overspray on it, yes, over there. Alternator, you don't really see that, but I cleaned it up, but it doesn't look good. This water neck, I'm not sure what this black stuff is on it, but I got this section really clean, this front half not so much. Also this torque mounts, see there's got the poly inserts. Those used to be in here. I'm not sure why they put them in here, because this carries the weight of the engine, and this one basically carries the rocking of the engine back and forth. So I'll put it back there because I think it will be more beneficial there. On this side we also have on this mount that goes in there, you can see there's also a polyurethane insert, and this one has just filled with silicone. So I'm just going to put those back. I should probably replace them and redo them, but you know, they worked perfectly before, so they'll work perfect again. And yeah, it's not in the budget now. Okay guys, thanks for watching. I'm sure in the next video we'll actually be able to start the car. Please like, comment, subscribe, and see you all in the next one.